Beneath the Fig Tree, a gentle journey to wealth, fame, and health. Let me tell you a story. Not a loud one, not flashy. Just a quiet morning where I sat beneath a fig tree in my backyard, holding a cup of hot tea, watching the sunlight filter through the leaves. My heart felt strangely at peace, and it was in those silent moments that I realized everything I had been chasing, money, fame, and health, had never been far away. They were simply waiting for me to learn how to receive them. I used to be in a rush. I thought I had to run fast, compete hard, stand out from the crowd to succeed. But one day I heard a monk say, "Those who walk slowly often see more than those who run." At first I didn't get it, but over time, life carved that lesson deep into my understanding. I remember reading the story of a successful entrepreneur. His name was Jim Carrey. Not just a comedian, but someone who once wrote himself a check for $10 million in 1985. A decade later, he received that exact amount for his role in Dumb and Dumber. But what struck me most was what he shared. I didn't just write the check, I acted as though I already had it. That is the power of belief, of abundant thinking. I began to change the way I thought. Every morning, I'd spend 15 minutes imagining myself living in abundance. A warm home, a healthy bank account, vibrant health. Not as fantasy, but as a mental workout, like training a muscle. One day, I met a woman named Claire, a nutrition expert and minimalist. She said, "When I started asking myself what really matters, money began to flow. I no longer spent to fill a void. I spent to invest in lasting value." Claire taught me how to eat mindfully and care for my body, not for appearances, but out of respect for myself. She said, "Your body is the vehicle for your dreams. Treat it like a luxury car." As for fame, I used to think it was the applause of others, but I learned it's really the applause from within when you do what you believe is right. I learned this from a former mentor, a man who left his executive job to become a teacher in a rural town. When you live in alignment with your values, recognition follows as a natural result. The slower I lived, the clearer I saw that wealth, fame, and health didn't come from competition. They came from inner harmony. When your mind is calm, you make wiser choices, and wise choices lead to abundant outcomes. I practice gratitude while pouring water, eating meals, going to bed. I once challenged myself, each morning, write down 3 things I was grateful for. After 21 days, my life began to shift, not by magic, but because I started seeing what I had instead of what I lacked. If you're still listening after an hour, I want you to remember this. You don't need to become someone else to attract wealth, fame, and health. You simply need to return to yourself, live each moment fully, set clear intentions, and trust that the universe supports those who know what they want. As I wrap up this story, I'm still here beneath the fig tree. My tea is cold now, but my heart is warm, because I know the journey to abundance isn't a destination. It's found in each intentional step you take on the path you choose. And you, if you're here listening, your journey has already begun. In the weeks that followed, I began to refine my habits. I stopped consuming mindlessly. Every dollar I spent became a question. Will this bring me long-term joy or just a short-term escape? The answers changed my finances. Slowly, my savings grew, not because I earned more, but because I became more conscious. I also began a simple morning routine that changed my life. It started with silence, just 5 minutes of sitting and breathing. Then I wrote down my goals, visualized them as if they were happening now. Finally, I read one page of a book that inspired me. That routine, so small, began to rewire my mind. One book I came back to again and again was Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. One particular line stuck with me. Whatever the mind of man can conceive and believe, it can achieve. I wrote it on a sticky note and placed it on my bathroom mirror. Every morning I'd read it out loud. I didn't just read it, I believed it. Another day I met someone else who reinforced this belief. His name was David, a former athlete turned life coach. David told me about his lowest point: bankrupt, divorced, and struggling with health. I realized, he said, that I was living someone else's dream. So I quit chasing and started creating. He built his business from his garage, offering coaching for free at first just to get better. 10 years later, he's impacting thousands. David taught me a crucial lesson. Contribution brings value. When you focus on giving your best, compensation follows. It's not always immediate, but it's always eventual. That changed the way I approach work. I stopped asking, what can I get, and started asking, what can I give? I want to offer you a challenge, something I did that dramatically improved my clarity. For the next 7 days, write down each evening one way you brought value to someone's life, one thing you're proud of doing, one moment you truly felt alive. This simple reflection will awaken something in you. You'll start seeing patterns, moments where you felt most connected, most fulfilled. Follow those, and always remember, the path to wealth, fame, and health isn't paved with tricks or shortcuts. It's built on intention, discipline, generosity, and belief. It's about mastering yourself first, your thoughts, your time, your habits. As night falls and I look up at the stars through the branches of the fig tree, I feel no urgency. I feel alignment, because I know now, abundance is not something you chase, it's something you become. And so, dear friend, may you walk slowly, live deeply, and receive fully. Your greatest life is not ahead of you. It's already within you, waiting to unfold. Let this be your beginning. Over time, I noticed a shift, not just in my external life, but in how people responded to me. My presence had changed. There was a calm certainty in my voice, a quiet confidence in my eyes. People began asking me what I was doing differently. The truth was, I wasn't doing more. I was doing less, but with greater clarity. One afternoon, I met a woman named Rachel at a seminar. She was a nutritionist turned entrepreneur who had built a successful wellness brand from scratch. Over coffee, she told me, the secret is alignment. When your actions match your vision, the universe starts working with you. Her story stayed with me. Rachel had once worked 16-hour days, burned out, and constantly sick. But she made a change. She started waking up with gratitude, planning her days with intention, and saying no to what didn't align with her values. Her health improved, her business flourished, and she became a magnet for partnerships and opportunities. Inspired by her, I began to simplify my life further. I decluttered not just my home, but my calendar, my digital space, even my conversations. I learned that silence wasn't empty, it was full of answers. When I stopped filling every minute with noise, I heard my intuition more clearly. I also began to track where my energy went. Not just time, but energy. I asked myself, does this activity energize or drain me? This one question became a compass. I said goodbye to things and people that pulled me away from my highest path. That wasn't easy, but it was necessary. And then something subtle began to happen. Money started flowing more easily. Clients showed up without me chasing them. I got invited to speak at events. My health improved. I woke up with energy, joy, and a sense of purpose I hadn't felt in years. It wasn't magic, it was magnetism, built through clarity, discipline, and peace. I used to think money was the goal, but the more I slowed down, the clearer it became. Money is just a byproduct of well-directed energy. My mornings weren't just routines, they became rituals of alignment. I didn't chase to-do lists anymore. I followed energy trails, and they led me to exactly where I needed to be. Thomas, the former Wall Street banker, had taught me that our nervous system is the real bank. When it's in deficit, when we live in anxiety, overwork, fear, it doesn't matter how much we earn. We leak wealth. But when it's in surplus, calm, confident, clear, we attract with ease. So I started treating my energy like sacred currency. Sleep became non-negotiable. I stopped glorifying exhaustion. I learned how to say no to invitations, clients, even ideas, not from fear, but from alignment. Is this expansive or contracting? I asked that before every decision. I replaced ambition with resonance. If a project didn't excite my nervous system, it wasn't mine to carry. And yet, the more I refused what didn't fit, the more offers, opportunities, and partnerships came to me, bigger than I'd ever imagined. Wealth began showing up in new ways. Meaningful conversations, unexpected gifts, aligned collaborators. The kind of wealth that didn't fade with inflation. The kind that grew richer with time. Fame used to mean billboards, interviews, a million followers. But now I define it differently. Being known by the right people, for the right reasons. And it starts with authenticity. As I lived more aligned, people naturally took notice. Not because I advertised, but because I embodied what I spoke. That's when I discovered the law of quiet magnetism. When your energy is coherent, people feel it, even in silence, especially in silence. Rachel, the wellness entrepreneur, once told me, "Don't build an audience, build a vibration. The audience will find you." So I stopped obsessing over metrics. I focused instead on messages. Every post I shared, every conversation I had, I asked, does this reflect the truth of who I am becoming? That question filtered out noise and deepened my influence. Strangely, the less I tried to be visible, the more visible I became. Podcasts invited me. My inbox filled with thank you notes from strangers. My presence, online and offline, was expanding, but it felt natural, gentle, sustainable. This wasn't about fame for fame's sake. It was about impact. My words, my energy, were helping others wake up, and that felt richer than any spotlight. The shift came quietly, like a breeze at the edge of a storm. I had just wrapped up a speaking tour, a series of sold-out events. My inbox was overflowing. I had more money than I'd ever imagined, a team that respected me, and a calendar full of opportunities. And yet, I felt a weight. It wasn't burnout. It was something deeper, a whisper I couldn't ignore. "You've climbed the wrong mountain." At first, I tried to silence it. I told myself I was just tired, but the feeling persisted. Not sadness, not regret, just a gentle pull inward, like life itself was inviting me to sit still and listen again. So I paused everything. I canceled future appearances. I told my team I needed time, not to plan, but to be. And I returned to the fig tree where this all began. In that silence, the truth emerged. I had built success around my former self, her dreams, her goals, her wounds. But now a new version of me was awakening. One who didn't just want to achieve, but to serve, to create from wholeness, not hunger. That was the real turning point. Letting go of the life I had mastered, to embrace the life that was calling. Transformation doesn't always come with fireworks. Sometimes it arrives as a soft surrender. I sold my company, not out of despair, but devotion. I gave my team generous severance, passed on clients to people I trusted, and let go with love. Then I disappeared here for a while. No social media, no press, just a cabin in the woods, a stack of journals, and a fire that never stopped burning. In that stillness, I met the parts of myself I had buried beneath ambition. I cried. I laughed. I forgave. I remembered who I was before the world told me who to be. One morning I woke up and knew. I wasn't meant to just speak about success. I was meant to guide others through their own becoming. Not as a coach or a guru, but as a mirror, a witness to their brilliance. So I returned, but not to the spotlight, to small rooms, to circles of people ready for real change. I built retreats, wrote letters, created quiet spaces for others to reconnect with their own wisdom. And oddly enough, from that place of stillness, the fame returned, this time deeper, more meaningful. I was being seen, not for what I had, but for who I had become. I had crossed the threshold, and there was no going back. Life, I realized, has seasons. I had passed through the season of hunger, the season of growth, and now I was entering a season of service. It wasn't about giving everything away. It was about giving from overflow, not obligation. I started holding retreats in quiet places, by the ocean, in the mountains, in old temples tucked away from the world. People came not for tactics, but for clarity. They came to remember, and I didn't teach much. I just listened, asked the right questions, held space for them to discover their own answers. One woman, Elena, had been a corporate executive for 20 years. In one session, she broke down crying and said, "I don't know who I am without my title." I looked her in the eyes and said, "That's the perfect place to begin." These moments weren't glamorous, but they were sacred. I no longer sought to lead masses. I simply wanted to walk beside those who were ready to wake up, to remind them of their power, not to give them mine. Because true wealth is not what you accumulate. It's what you help others awaken in themselves. As the years passed, my life became quieter, but fuller. I wrote letters instead of newsletters. I planted gardens instead of chasing platforms, and strangely, my influence deepened. I was invited into boardrooms, not as a strategist, but as a presence. CEOs asked me how to build cultures of soul, not just profit. Artists sought me out to find their voice again. Young people wanted to know how to live, not just succeed. I realized my legacy wouldn't be in books or buildings or metrics. It would be in the invisible ripple, in the conversations that changed someone's direction, in the letter that gave someone the courage to start over, in the silence that reminded someone of their truth. And maybe, I thought, that's what real power is. Not how loudly you can speak, but how deeply you can listen. Not how many follow you, but how many find themselves through you. I often return to the fig tree, now older, wider, its roots deep in the earth. I'd sit there with my tea and smile. Everything I had once chased had found me, and it had nothing to do with luck or magic. It had everything to do with alignment. There was no applause, no grand crescendo, Just a morning like any other. The sky soft with dawn, a breeze brushing the curtains and the scent of jasmine floating through the open window. I had grown older, not just in age but in essence. My skin showed lines from laughter and grief, my hair bore streaks of silver wisdom, and my steps carried a steadiness that no longer sought speed. In those quiet days, I began to write, not to teach, not to impress, but to remember. I wrote letters to my younger self, to the girl who once sat beneath the fig tree, unsure if she was enough. I told her, you were never too small. You were simply still becoming. And I wrote to those who might one day read my words. I didn't tell them to hustle harder. I told them to listen, to the pauses, to the quiet longing, to the places in them that still whispered when the world shouted. Because if there is one truth I've come to believe, it is this. Life whispers long before it ever screams. Most of us are simply too distracted to hear. We wait for breakdowns, heartbreak, illness, or loss to shift. But what if we didn't have to wait? What if we could learn to notice sooner? What if every answer we seek already lives inside us, beneath the noise, beneath the urgency, like treasure buried in still waters? It took me decades to understand that alignment is not an achievement. It's a practice, a daily choosing, to wake with intention, to spend with wisdom, to speak with integrity, to create from truth, to rest without guilt, to love without clinging, to give without losing yourself. I no longer chased wealth. I honored it. I no longer chased fame. I embodied light. I no longer chased health. I communed with my body like a lifelong friend, tenderly, gratefully, reverently. And in doing so, everything I ever longed for came home to me. So here is what I have learned, distilled in the simplest way I can offer it. Wealth is not in the bank. It's in your relationship with sufficiency. Fame is not visibility. It's resonance with truth. Health is not perfection. It's harmony between mind, body, and soul. The more aligned you become, the less you need to force. Life begins to move through you, not against you. You stop asking, how can I get more? And start wondering, how can I remember who I really am? And that remembering is the beginning of everything. Tonight, as you lie down, let go of the striving. Let go of the proving. Let go of the noise. You are already enough. You are already becoming. And life is already whispering. May your dreams tonight be gentle. May your sleep be deep. And may your spirit remember, even in silence, that you are exactly where you need to be. Good night. Wait, just a moment. If you haven't truly fallen asleep yet, I have one final secret to share. One that might just keep you awake for a few minutes more. You will never become truly wealthy unless you start a business. I know, it sounds bold, maybe even annoying at this hour, but stay with me. Let me tell you about Frankie. Frankie was a professional overthinker. He had 1,000,000 business ideas and 0 businesses. One day he got tired of taking cold coffee to work. So he invented a mug that screams when your coffee gets too cold. Yes, screams. Like actually screams. He called it MUGGED. At first, people thought he was joking, but it went viral. Not because it made sense, but because it made people laugh. Then it made people buy. Frankie didn't try to be brilliant. He just solved a weird problem in a weirder way. And somehow it worked. He went from broke to booked out overnight, just selling screaming mugs online. The point? You don't need a genius plan. You need to solve a problem with personality. Add something human, something real, something only you would come up with. That's what business is. Not numbers, not charts. It's a story that sells itself because it's honest, a little weird, and absolutely needed. So if you've got a strange little idea floating around in your mind right now, maybe it's time to stop doubting it. Maybe your version of mugged is the thing that sets you free. And hey, now you can finally rest. With all the wisdom we've explored tonight about energy, money, purpose, sandwiches, and screaming mugs, you've gathered more than most people learn in years. So yes, let's end here. Let your breath soften. Let your muscles melt. Let your mind drift. And now together, let's tune in to the sound of nature, the gentle crackle of the campfire, the wind in the trees. I'm going to turn up the fire sound just a little. Sleep, my friend. Rest well. Good night.